The earthquakes in Japan are called an act of God. Very interesting, they call it an act of God. And they say there hasn't been such a disaster in Japan since World War II. You know, I often think of the people who you said, where was God during the war, in World War II, when so much innocent people were killed? 60 million people were killed in the Second World War. And so many people were murdered without any consideration. Not only Jewish people, all kinds of people. And somebody asked me once, where was God? God's showing his answer now. When we were in Egypt, 400 years we were suffering in Egypt, God didn't show his wrath straight away. It took us, we only went out after 400 years or less, but we only went out after so and so many years. It was 200 something years, but it doesn't make a difference. They suffered over 200 years in Egypt until God showed his hand with the 10 plagues and took us out of Egypt with the splitting of the sea and all these things which are recorded in the Bible, and they're even recorded in the hieroglyphics of the Egyptian manuscripts. But they say God doesn't pay back. Look what God's paying back to Japan now for their cruelty to soldiers in the war. They weren't just capturing them, they treated them in a cruel manner, like the film which shows Bridge on the River Kwai or whatever it's called, yeah? Bridge over the, how many poor soldiers were murdered. It's a true story. Soldiers were murdered and murdered. Prisoners of war were disgraced and kept in a terrible condition. And even today, when Japan arrests 2 boys for being drug addicts, youngsters, and they're saying they're innocent, they are slowing their case on for the last 3 years and not bringing them to justice. Either way, they're just keeping the case running and running with pain and cruelty, and I hear the prisons are cruel and everything else. Do you think God, now if you ask the question, where is God? Look at what happened to Japan today, and you see where God is. God is there. I want everybody really to watch in the video news or film news on television news how the water swept in with Japan. He didn't even want to show on their screens, but the satellites captured the scene, how the water came in 10 meters high at a speed of 50, 60, 100 miles an hour, washing away cars. You're going to tell me, and thousands upon thousands of people, we don't even know how many were killed. And you're telling me God doesn't punish back? This is an act of God. It's not a man-made thing which war has started. The act of God suddenly decided enough of this country who is cruel and corrupt and disregarding of everybody else. They don't care about anybody else. All they care about is themselves. And this brings me on to another point in life. I discuss often things, I only show 2 sides. I want to show both sides to people who think they don't believe or people who do believe. I want to show both sides. You can't prove belief, but you can't disprove belief. You can't show that there is nothing about, there's something up there which runs this world. This is what I'm trying to show. I'm trying to show both sides. When I bring along a case of something that's happened, for certain things that happen in life, I try to bring along both sides and show you how the difference is. There was an article in the paper, they made a Eures, that means like a hesped, and they brought Rav Yosef Benjamin Wozner talk and Rabbi Yankel Meyer Adler, Alter, Rabbi Yankel Meyer Alter, the Bnei Menachem Santa talk, because he's a brother-in-law of this person who this young wife died, and they're showing, and I said to this Yankel Meyer Alter, I said to him, you know, they don't want to take this. Somebody said we're lacking in Ahava, Achva, V'Rayas. We're lacking in Yedidischaft. We're lacking in friendship to each other. Feeling the pain of another person. If we felt the pain of another person, it really hurt us, then God couldn't bring out this punishment, because I might not need to be hurt for this pain which the other person is feeling. And if I feel the pain for another person, then they can't punish the other person, because God is tzedek. God is complete righteousness. And this is something I wanted to say to him. I said, you know, what you're saying now is not just now. The Imre Emes said it the first thing when he became Rebbe. What is Ahava, Achva, V'Sholem? Where you're lacking in loving your neighbor. I don't know. All Chassidists are the same. And some Chassidists despise other Chassidists. They look at Lubavitch in a bad way. Lubavitch look at Ger in a bad way. Or Satmar in a bad way. Satmar looks like they're the only ones. This thinking that you are the only one. This is causing causing such a lot of sin and hatred, and there must be a bit of a way. But the Ger Rebbe foresaw it, and he says, if this thing is lacking from you, you don't have love thy neighbor, you don't have this love. It's no, and what's the use of making a meeting? I asked somebody there, Dandarovich, he's a ganze Macher in Ger, tell me, what's going to come out of the meeting? Is anything going to change? Is anything going to change? You know, in Ger, when you put Yom Kippur night, they all come up to you and they say, Moichel Mephias. I don't even accept any hands anymore. I don't like this. Moichel Mephias, you ask me Mechila, Mephias, that means you're asking Mechila, sorry for what I've done for you, and you ask your Mephias, you're asking the person forgiveness. I went up to somebody once who never talked to me, and he came up to me on Kippur night and he shook my hand, Moichel Mephias. Next day I went up to him, after him, Kippur, I went after him. I wanted to talk to him. I don't want to talk to you, he said to me. So I said to him, but you've said to me, Moichel Mephias, you've asked me, Yom Kippur night, before Kol Nidre, you came up to me. He said, that's because of Yom Kippur. I thought to myself, what a stupid man. How stupid. What? So I don't do it anymore. You don't. I said, what are you going to gain by making a meeting, calling a man over for Etzisrol, a brother-in-law, getting Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda Wozen to talk about certain things, if it's not going to change anything in us? We're not going to change. We're not prepared to change. Even when we see the wrath of God in Japan, how God smit back the Japanese for the cruelty what they do today and they did years ago to not only to Jewish people, but rather they had to arrest soldiers we were at war, but you don't have to treat them cruelly. Now the cruelty is being shown back. Cruelty in such a manner that's never been seen before. 8.9 on the Richter scale. Never been seen such an earthquake. Tsunami so high, water spreading, came in at such a pace that the people ran, you could see on the screens, people running away from the water, were engulfed in the water and taken up as if it's a mere mabel by the floods of in Noah's time. It's unbelievable. Exactly how the Apostle described it, this you could see on television in your days today. You can watch it and see that it's happened.